So in this video we're going to start taking a look at SQL injection. I'm going to start off with the most basic example that I can find, and then we'll build up from there. We'll do a little bit in this video and then we'll do some more videos going into it a little bit more. So for this I'm going to use Burp Suite as an interceptor, so that will intercept the requests and responses that we make to the website. The website itself I'm using Portswigger because Portswigger make Burp, and they also have their own academy, so you can log in or you can make an account and you can log in, you can go to their academy, it's all free of charge, and you can go through a lot of their labs which mainly target web pen testing. So I'll show you. So on the left here this is Burp, on the right this is Portswigger. So if we go to Academy Home, let's say Vulnerability Labs. So these are all their labs. So they've got SQL Injection, loads of labs about that, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, loads and loads and loads. So if it's something you really want to get into, it's definitely worth coming here and practicing. It doesn't cost you anything. So for this video we are going to start off with the easiest SQL. So it gives you, each lab will give you a little description as to what you've got to do. So the other good thing about this is if you click on here, you can actually see they give you information about each vulnerability or each type of vulnerability. So that's quite good to read up on as well. They also have a solutions here. So this is solution by Portswigger, and then they have community solutions which you can click to expand if you do get stuck. So it says here to solve the lab, perform an SQL injection attack that logs into the application as the administrator user. So we already know that there is an administrator user, so let's access the lab. Wait for it to load. Okay, so this is it here. So everything below this orange line is treated as the actual website itself, or the vulnerable website. Now just bear with me a second. I'll do a video on Burp and how to use it, but I'm just going to make it a little bit easier because you can see there are loads of requests to other rubbish. Okay, so whenever you and I will do a video on how basic requests and responses work, but very briefly, when you click on something, when you go on a website and you do anything, it sends a request and the web server sends you back a response. So for example, if we click on my account here, you'll see on the left it will start to populate. So on the left here you've got these here, so let's click on this one. So when someone clicks my account, you can see here that this is the request. So it sends a GET request to my account. These are all the headers. There's lots and lots of them, different types. And headers essentially set rules or guidelines for a browser. So headers are quite important in web security because they can help with things like XSS, cross-site scripting. You can have headers that help stop that. There's lots of others. We'll go through those again in another video. And this is the response. So this is what the web server sends back. So you can see that it's just done a 302 found, and then you've got a few more headers here. So 302 found is basically saying that the resource that you want has been moved to the location which is stated in here, which is the login. So that's this request here. So that's this login request. So you can click on that, and then this is the website. So this is this in its front end code, if you like. So you can see now we've got 200 OK. We can render it as well within Burp as well if we wanted to, which will display this. So it's the same as that. Now if I'm going to submit, so if you were doing a pen test and you get to this form, you will just want to treat it as a normal form to start with. So you want to try and gauge what's going on. So we do admin, and we just do test as the password. So we can see that now we've got a post request because we've actually sent something. So you can see down here, we've got a token here, which we're going to ignore for the time being because we're talking about SQL. And you can see that it's actually sent the username admin along with the password test, but we know that's wrong anyway. So it's sent that, and it's responded back with all this, and in here you can see invalid username or password. If we render it, it will look exactly the same as that. So what this is doing is going back to here. Is it's basically saying select all from users where is it username? I think the column name is username's equal to admin. That's what we typed in, and password is equal to I can't remember what I put in now. I'll test. So that is what the query is looking like. Obviously we're not going to find anything here because we're using our example one. So this is what the query is looking like. So what we're saying is select all the columns from the table name users, which is probably different to Portswigger one, but it's just an example, where the username that we put in, which is admin, so we have put that in. And again, this is an example. This isn't related to this at all. It's just, I've just laid it out so you can actually see it a bit better. So you can say that we put username here as admin, the password as test. So that's what that's doing. So these two bits here are user inputted. So that means we have control over this. And because this is an example, there's no filters, there's no validation on this at all. Okay, so it'll literally just execute whatever we put in. So there's a few things that you can do. We can say, so we know based on this here, so we know that the user is actually administrator. So administrator, yeah, spell that right. So we know that based on the and here, that both of these values need to match. They need to be in a database. Okay, so it's going to try and get all the columns, and it's going to go into the users, and it's going to find where the username is administrator, but also now the password also needs to match. It needs to be test. So if we go back to, let me just copy that. So if we use our table as an example, so select blah blah blah, where users, I can't remember a username. Let's just run that. Sorry if you can hear the dogs barking. So we've got one that's admin. Okay, so let's say where username equals admin. So that's just going to return the admin. So then if we also put and password, so this column here equals password 1, nothing's changed because these are both true. If the user put the wrong password in, let's say just put 2 on the end, it's going to return nothing because both of these need to be valid. They both need to match. So that is basically what this query is doing, or what this request, sorry, is doing here. Now, what I'm going to do, sorry about that, I had a bit of a dog issue, so I had to stop. Where were we? So, okay, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to repeater. And what repeater does is it enables you to keep sending requests without having to actually keep going through the website. So if I send this request now, you can see we get the same response, which is invalid username or password. Now, based on this here, so I don't know if you remember in the last video where I explained what SQL injection is, we learnt what comments are. So even if I just add a comment here, you can see all this turns green, and that's because it's no longer considering this as part of the query. It's just considered this as a comment. And developers will use comments all the time. You know, if they've got to sit there and write, 500, 600, 700 lines of code, they're going to split it up into sections and put comments so that they can describe what that section does or anything like that. So by adding these two dashes here, that eliminates all of this. So now suddenly all we're doing is we're saying, so if I get rid of that, so we know that this is the wrong password because this is 1, we've now added 2. So it doesn't return anything. But if we comment everything after the username out, we then get our return. So if you think about that, along with this here, so there's nothing stopping us from putting in administrator and 2 dashes. And then those 2 dashes, just like this here, is going to rule out the password query, which means it rules out this complete section here. So actually I'm not going to use repeater, I'm just going to do it on here. So if I now click login, I do have to actually put something in, I'm assuming then. Allowing login bypass. Okay, so we might have to use burp. So we've got that. So let's have a little look at what I've done. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's because, so if you go back, so let's just have a quick look at the mistake I made. So we've done this, so we've basically put this here. Now I'm hoping that you can hopefully see the issue, the mistake I made. So that is what I inputted, but I missed a single quote, and by adding a single quote, it now cancels out everything after. So go back to here, just put a single quote, so that closes this part here, the username part. Now the comment is then going to cancel out this and make the system ignore the password bit. Still need to put something in, and there you go, we have solved it. So that was it. Now there was another way you could do this. I don't know if I can get it back to not solved. Alright, anyway. So there's another way we can do this. So going back to our example, let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of this. So there's something else you can do. So on the password, what we can say is we can put in our password here, and we can say or 1 equals 1. Now, what that's done is you can see here that we've actually put the wrong password in, because that's 1 and that's 1 too. So what this has done is it's gone select all the columns from users where the username is administrator, or actually yeah, anyway, that doesn't matter. Sorry, where the username is administrator and the password is password, or 1 equals 1. So it's going to basically compare this value here, this whole result here, with this one. And it's going to come along and it's going to read this and it's go, first of all it's going to go, oh, no, there's no username that matches administrator and there's no password that matches password 1 too. But we know that 1 does equal 1, that's a true statement, 1 equals 1. So it's going to act as though it's true because we put an OR in. So if I change this to 2, because 1 does not equal 2, it's then going to go through here and it's going to go, there's no username with that's administrator, no password with that password, or does 1 equal 2? No, it doesn't. So it's going to bring back no result. So that is something that we can add in to the password field. So we could say the username is administrator, that's fine. Then we could say, we want to change this back to 1. So by us putting a password in, let's just put in, I've just typed in password 12. Okay, so that is basically the same as this code here. So where username equals administrator and the password equals that. So remember, because we're controlling this here, we need to add the single quote so we can close off this section here, then we can inject our own code. And even though that you might think that there's nothing else after this, there probably is. So we're just going to comment out everything that's after. So I am just basically going to put this into this password field here, and you can see we get logged in. So I'm hoping that sort of makes sense. So all we're doing is this. So this is the query that this front end sent to the back end when we clicked login or whatever it was. So it was just going into the database. It was seeing if there was a username that was administrator, which there was, so that's fine. And then it was checking the password was password 12, which it wasn't. But it doesn't really matter, these two don't really matter because we've included an OR 1 equals 1. So one of these needs to be true. Either this needs to be true or this needs to be true. Now we know that this wasn't true because we gave it the wrong password, but we know that 1 will always equal 1. And the computer knows that 1 will always equal 1. So it will go along and it will go, no, this is rubbish. Oh, but this is true, so it must be true. Let's log you in. So that's a very basic SQL injection. So let's move on to the next one. Let's get rid of that. Next one I had was this one. This lab contains an SQL injection vulnerability in a product category filter. So open it up. The results from the query are returned in the application's response. So you can use a union attack. Remember, we went through the union on the last video to retrieve data from other tables. The first step of such an attack is to determine the number of columns that are being returned by the query. Okay, so let's have a look. So we've got refine your search. So we've got these bits here, and we've got some listings. And if we click pets, brings just the pets back. So this is query in a database. It's going to pets, and it's just pulling through potentially all the columns, we don't know. It's pulling through the name, the price, and then view details, which when you click on, then obviously brings back more information. So let's have a look. First of all, I'm going to just AC401, this one, and then I'm going to clear all this. Now if I click pets, so we can see that this is sending a GET request. So GET request. So this is sending it as a GET request, which means the parameters are being sent in the URL. A POST request gets sent in the body, like we saw in the last example, where it had the username and email down here. That was a POST request. So we've got this GET request here. So what we can do is, this is obviously sending pets, okay, into the database, a bit like this here. So what we want is we need to try and query the other database that's got the user credentials in. Now, first of all, we need to try and figure out how many columns we can return. So you could look at this and you can have an educated guess and say that there's 3 columns. We've got that, and this here. But we'll start with 1. So we're going to imagine that the SQL statement or query ends in pets, and we need to finish that off ourselves by putting a single quote. Then we say union select. We can't just do all, because the user table, or whatever table it is that has the users in, could have 20 columns in it, and the pets could only have, or this column here could only have 3, 4, 5, whichever. So we need to find a happy medium. So we're going to put null for the first one, and then we are going to just comment out whatever's potentially after that. So we're going to then, I'm going to send this to repeater so that I don't have to keep submitting this request each time and intercept it. So you can see here, even if we just render it, it brings this back. I'm going to make this larger. So if what I wrote, I just add up into here and send. Look at the code, it's a little bit quicker. So you can see that we've got a 500 internal server error. There you are. So that to me tells me that I've got the wrong amount of columns. So there's more than 1 column. So we'll put another one. Send. And we've got another internal error here. So let's put 1 more in. And we've got a 200 OK. So we render it, and you can see in the corner here, because we sent the request, it's even come up as solved. There you are. So we know that there's 3 columns, okay, that we can use. There's another way you can do this, and you can use what's called order by. So it will basically be order by 1, let's say. And what this will do is it will order everything, or it will order the results based on the first column. If you put 2, it will order the results based on the second column. If you put order by 3, by the third column, so on and so on. So you can use this to see how many columns there are. So if we were to put 1, and send, it loads with the 200 OK. So that's fine. We're not expecting an error if we get it right, or if we're under the amount of columns. If we go over, so we know that there's 3 columns, so if we did 4, that's when we would get the error, because there's only 3 columns and we're asking for it to order by the 4th one, which doesn't exist. So then we'd get the same 500 internal error. So you get to that point, you know you've gone too far, so we can come back down to 3. And then we will get a 200, which is fine. So we know that if we do 4, we get an internal error. We do 3, we don't get an error. It loads as it should. So that tells us that we can use 3 columns. That's probably going to be it for this video. So I've done 2 examples. The next video, will probably be finding a column containing text, and there's a few others that I want to do. To be honest, I'd like to try and do all of them, and then all of the cross-site scripting, but it's going to take time. But yeah, we'll on the next video we'll have a go at probably another 2. But hopefully that does make sense. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video.